Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of the Lookout Podcast. I'm joined by Acting State Forester Wyatt Frampton, and he's here to talk about all the great work that the Montana DNRC does here in this beautiful state of ours, and also dispel maybe a little bit of the misconceptions, mostly put out there by me, I would say, because I didn't fully understand exactly the scope of what you guys do, man. So honored to have you, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, awesome. No, appreciate the invite and happy to chat and talk about what we're up to and the things that we're responsible for. Stoked to be here.
Oh man, yeah, dude, great to have you. And it's also like like this podcast. I didn't want to be like just like a Forest Service podcast or just fire. I want to talk to everybody, man. So this is great to have you. And so I want to ask you, like I forgot to ask you before, how'd you get involved in land management?
So it's I think it's a fun story. So I started, I was 18 looking for a fun summer job and saw the NRC was hiring firefighters in Libby and wildland firefighters. And I was like, man, that sounds awesome. And so I threw an application in and I'm pretty sure at the time it was still, they were paper applications or that
I bet.
put the answers in a Word document and emailed them in kind of thing. And so a couple weeks later, got an interview and then a start date a few days after that. And so I started, that summer up in Libby. And it was, I was going to school at the University of Colorado at the time. And I was like, oh, this is going to be such a fun summer job. And just kind of always thought of it as a summer job. But it was, I loved everything about what we were doing from the fire side to getting to help on the forestry side as well with some of the things that the foresters were doing and then kind of learning, having my eyes open to everything that was involved in the broader land management world.
Yeah.
And so, so then, I got went through, started as a firefighter, got to, and I was engine based is where I was, primarily working and,
Were those like Type 5s?
yeah,
Yeah.
our little Type 5 brush trucks and,
Yeah.
and it's funny too, like, the first truck I was on, we didn't have AC and like, like they were like the, roll down windows. And so that some of that stuff's come a super long way, but, and then I got to go, like my second summer, got to go out on a kootenai, thrown together Type 2 IA crew. And we went down to California and we got to do a bunch of great stuff, help people out and had a great time. And then that kind of like really set the hook for me I was like, I want to figure out how to do more of this. And so then I got my degree in environmental studies and geology and kind of, was at that point where this is, to move up, you needed somebody to retire or somebody you had to like move somewhere, trying to find a spot. And so I kind of had started throwing my job out, I was getting ready to graduate and was like, all right, this might be my last summer in fire. And so I went through, I was filling out applications all over the place for other industries for a full-time job. And towards the end of the season, my boss at the time, Mark Peck, in Libby, they've got there's the Superfund site there with some of it from some of the asbestos mine. And a lot of that Superfund process was, really picking up in speed. And so he was like, hey, would you be open to sticking around for the winter and helping understand some of this that we've got going on here? And I was like, are you going to pay me? And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. So that's kind of how I landed, so that was sort of my bridge out of college. And then a slot opened up for a 6-month job. And then I was like, all right, sweet. I'm in it now. And so I had a guaranteed seasonal spot and then got to, keep working up the ranks and eventually became the fire management officer for the DNRC Libby unit, and then did that for a couple years. Had some great times, and then was there in our Northwest Land Office, which is kind of based out of Kalispell but covers the top left corner of the state. And so I was the area fire management officer there, and getting to work I was working for some great mentors and really enjoying it. And I can remember at the time, so Greg Ponson was my supervisor, a long time Type 1 IC. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I recognize that name.
Yeah, he's, and
Fonson's team.
So I got to work for him for a good number of years, and it was, fantastic. And I remember him talking one time about how, is sort of this paradigm shift for me of like, we're constantly in this response mode. We're showing up after the fire's already started.
Yeah.
And we've got this opportunity, with some new authorities that are coming out, like Good Neighbor Authority, or some of these opportunities to help people before the fire starts. And so then, coincidentally, right around that time, a job opened up to help out with rewriting the state's forest action plan, which is, for if you don't know what those are, Congress mandates every 10 years every state has a plan that outlines what our goals, opportunities, and challenges are with forest health and wildfire risk in a state. And so I got to slide in and be the run the development process for that, and that really opened my eyes to thinking, outside, like there's this whole other world. Like fire suppression is super important, but there's this whole other world where we can engage in the public and other decisions to help in the landscape. And so I think we did a super good job putting that plan together, involved a bunch of people, learned a lot, had a lot of fun. And then from there, I got we had some, there was continued movement in the DNRC, and the spot opened up for the job I was in until about 2 weeks ago, which was one of the deputies for our Forestry and Trust Lands division. And so then in that job, I oversee our fire protection program, our Good Neighbor Authority program, and then all of our forestry assistance programs where we help private landowners manage their forests. And so that's sort of how I slipped, tripped, and fell to where I'm at, and it's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, man. It's it's just kind of following openings as they open up in front of you, right? I mean, it's even like, to use an analogy, like for me, it's like when you're walking through the woods, you're just kind of chasing whatever path kind of presents itself as you're cruising through some timber, right? Like kind of same deal, right? As long as you just keep moving forward. And that's really cool too, because very similar like backgrounds like to me. So like getting in fire and getting to know that, and then like you said, when your mentor said to you like, well, yeah, and I remember saying this a long time ago when I was just like, I just got on a smoke jump and I was like, dude, I'm just like kind of tired of being like reactive. I want to be more proactive to fire instead of like always being ready for the IA. I want to be like, what can we do more in the off season? Because when I first got up, probably same with you, when I first got in the agency, we weren't. Or, I think a lot of land agencies weren't really doing as much prevention stuff, like as in like thinning and burning and all the things, like at least during my little window. Like maybe before I came in, they were doing it, and that just for some reason wasn't happening. And so I feel like, like you said, the good neighbor agreements and all these things that we're doing now, and now I'm a partnership coordinator. I get to be involved in some of those things, like our, big projects with like Wild Turkey Federation, a few things, and you guys probably partner with them too, huh?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and that's huge too, because then you get like some partners on board and some other groups to come, some volunteer groups to come help us out, and yeah, I think it helps get some buy-in with the public folks. I mean, don't quite understand why we're in there cutting trees, and it's like, oh, we're opening up the habitat. It actually helps, and then keeps fire. It's not going to keep fire from totally coming through there, but it's going to knock down the effects if we do it right.
Well, and that's one of the things that I thought was super cool about the work we did with the Forest Action Plan was we wanted to make sure that it was approachable for everybody in Montana to know, like, we do have some significant forest health issues in the state, and we've also got quite a bit of wildfire risk, and there's things that, we as agencies can do, and there's things that homeowners can do too to help mitigate their risk, and so we wanted to make sure that some of that was approachable. And then, I think it's also happened at the same time that there's just this huge inpouring of new technology and data sets, and what we can do with that data to represent what the risk and opportunity, and then the impact of the treatments that we're having on the landscape too.
Yeah, totally, and working with each other more too, right? Like you said, like Forest Service, DNRC, or BLM, and all the agencies, and then with our partners too, like you're saying, you're working with the Turkey Federation, like we're doing the same thing down the Bitterroots. So, I mean, that's super cool, because I feel like back in the day, like you said before, technology was there. It was just hard, like. I mean, even email, like when I was around, it's just a little harder to get like those conversations going where you can just like jump on Teams and be like, hey, I just added some, like Wyatt from the DNRC, so we're going to bring him in to talk about some of the projects he's doing and share like some of the successes that you've had,
Oh, totally. Like the access to information now that we have is incredible, and it could be totally overwhelming too. Yeah, and I think that's sometimes our responsibility to try to help filter it out so folks know, what's relevant for them or what they're trying to do.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, that's a really good point too, because it makes it, I feel like it makes all of us a little more approachable for the public, because Facebook and all these other social media platforms that the agencies are starting to use more, and I think it's just easier to like reach out or just Google something like, oh, what is this about, like Forest Action Plan like we were doing, or like the one you were talking about too. Did you call that a state action plan? What was that?
Forest Action Plan.
Oh, it was a Forest Action Plan? Oh, yeah, same thing. Yeah, because we were doing the same one on the Bitterroot, I believe, right now. So, it's super cool to be able to, do that, and then people are like, I don't know what that means. And then, I mean, you just explained it here, but like for folks who maybe weren't listening to this podcast, or just kind of heard it in passing, they're like, oh, then they just look it up. Versus back in the day, before most people had computers, it's a little different,
Well, and and that was our thought too. Is just like we wanted it to be something that anybody could pick up, regardless of what they know about the forest and or the environment, and pick it up and learn a lot about the what's unique about Montana, the opportunities and the threats we have to what we know.
Totally. Yeah, I'm just gonna add to that too. I like just the why, right? Like I think most of the time when we have any kind of like friction with the public, it's because they don't fully understand the why. Which totally understandable, because back in the day there was a few things that may have happened, like was maybe a little more aggressive logging or something that wasn't so nice in the landscape, and or just some stuff that were getting tested like the terracing back in the day. Like no one really knew what long-term impact. It just seemed like a great idea and to go for it. And it wasn't like there, as far as I know, there wasn't any kind of malicious act there. It was just that everyone thought that was a good next step and to help with erosion and planting and all those things, and turns out maybe not so much.
Yeah, and that's the we can learn and grow and have opportunity to do better, and I think that's what we've, and that's one of the things that I think is cool about whether it's the forest action plan or just this increased communication that we have, is that I think we see it a lot with Good Neighbor Authority right now. It's like, hey, this worked super well over on this forest, or hey, we heard about Idaho doing this, and so there's these networks where we can share this information with each other, to just because we're all trying to do what's best for the landscape and the people that live on it and use it, and so
absolutely
how we can do that better and more efficiently is the name of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just like you said, bouncing off ideas off everybody in different states and stuff. And actually, I had a question I was thinking about on the way in. Is so the Montana DNRC, right? It's your jurisdictions in the state of Montana, but do you? So like in the Forest Service, right? Like I can nationally we're a thing. So like we communicate with everybody, but then we have specific forests inside Montana, and well, it used to be region, but it's kind of going away. But so for you, like, do you guys communicate with like other states? Is there other Idaho DNRC and stuff like that?
Oh, totally, yeah. And so maybe if I could just like take a step back and make
please.
the DNRC. So for us at the forestry and trust lands division, so that's the part of the DNRC that I work for, and the DNRC is also responsible for we help folks with water rights and oil and gas and minerals, and we've got, there's a whole bunch of different, we also help like conservation districts and large water projects with helping get federal grants to the ground. So there's a whole bunch of things that the DNRC does. But in my world, the Forestry and Trust Lands Division, in the programs I'm responsible for, so Montana is about 94 million acres. We provide, through direct protection and then agreements with counties, we provide and are responsible for wildland fire protection on about 63 million acres of state and federal lands. And, to be successful in that, we don't have, we have our direct protection program is where we have firefighters we employ. That's mostly on the western part of the state. And then on the eastern part of the state, we've got this huge network of agreements with counties. Well, we have these agreements everywhere, but it's, on the eastern side of the state is where this is much more of the model, where the county is responsible for that initial attack response through their fire departments. And then if that fire exceeds their capacity to respond, or they need more resources, whether that's financial or personnel, they can tap us in. And then we can be their partner with them to help, whether that's, helping pay for the suppression costs or bringing in, if it's incident management teams or additional resources, aircraft, things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of how we operate across the whole state, is like what works best in the different parts. And so, but all of that is super dependent on strong relationships, whether it's with our federal agencies or local governments or the NGOs that are around the state that help us get all this type of work done.
Yeah. So do you guys have to do a lot of cross training then to keep that operation kind of smooth?
Well, so we train like all our firefighters to same national standards that the Forest Service does, and we also provide a tremendous amount of training. We make training available to those fire departments across the state.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah, help with the NWCG level courses, and then And then we've got a program where we help administer grant funds so that they can buy wildland specific PPE
Nice.
or tools and that such. And then, just a few, probably about a mile from where we are now, we've got our equipment development center where we'll take, through it's a federal excess property program that the Forest Service administers, where they take, old decommissioned, essentially military excess equipment, and then they can transfer it to the states. And then we'll turn that into like tactical water tenders or brush trucks for those for those fire departments to help improve their odds of success in wildland fire response. And so
I never knew that, man, because I've seen some of those tactical archers. I'm like, that's pretty sweet.
yeah, we get that truck from the military, and then through this program, and then we paint them, we outfit them with the tanks and the pumps and all the hardware that goes with it, and then turn them over to the counties so they can try and be more successful in that initial attack.
Man, that's very cool. And then do you guys like? I've seen a lot of the brush trucks that are DNRC at like I'm from Whitehall, so like they pretty sure they have a brush truck there. They had one. It looked like a Type 5 DNR. Is that kind of like the standard too? Like you guys supply them with like a brush truck too?
Yeah, so that's the county co-op program, same thing. So like the equipment that our direct protection fire folks use is plumbed the same way all those county co-op trucks are plumbed, and so there's about 400 or so of those scattered across the state. But I think what's super cool about them is that it could be the one from Whitehall or it could be the one from Libby, but you walk up to the back of it and it's all going to be the same.
That's
and
so nice, dude.
So something the pump breaks on this one, and so you can take parts from this one and get this one to be working, and so that I got this super interchangeable components to them. And but it's it's like kind of our philosophy was that we're one fire program that operates in different ways across the state, whether we're that direct protection, which is like we've got the unit office with the DNRC employees that staff the truck, or it's the county that's putting the firefighters on the truck.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It helps build relationships too, I think, and like you said, in that continuity of having like all the components very similar. And I was always a little jealous because you guys were, mostly running Type 5s and we're always running Type 6s. So you guys get a little more water, and then, like you said, the functionality of it too. Like it seems like you guys haven't really changed your truck setups. Where like in the Forest Service, we've changed, at least since I've been around, we've changed our truck setups a lot. Because like when I first got in, it was similar to you. Like we'd single cab, Type 6 engines. It was like a lot of slips that would go on. So like some places they would take that off and use it for something else in the off season, and then put the tank and pump and everything's in the compartment slip back on. And it was like I can't remember what that setup was called, like B something. Oh man, I know you guys probably call it something different, but I can't remember what the heck it was called. But and then the pump itself was like super simple. It was like 4 bolts, and you could take that sucker off and put a new one, slap a new one back on, and that's kind of what you guys are, right?
You can. They're pretty straightforward in how you can follow where the water goes. You can see everything. So if something's leaking, you can fix it on the spot or know what the issue is. And
man, I like that a lot.
Yeah, so we run. We've I'd say modernized our approach to them. So we're running 500-gallon tanks on all our trucks now. And we just we launched last year what's kind of our 2.0 build on the truck. So they had been predominantly the same for, I think it was, don't quote me on it, but 20, 30 years, it had been about the same, more or less, build. And so we've gathered a lot of feedback across the state over the years, like, hey, it'd be better if you did this, or this part keeps breaking. And so we kind of compiled all of that, and now we've got the 2.0 version of the build that our shop over there is turning out, and they do a really good job of that, and we happy to show you sometime. It's a pretty sweet operation.
Oh, dude, yeah, you read my mind. I'd love to see it, dude. That's so cool, because we've got our place here at 14th and Catlin, and we don't really do any like retrofitting. We more just do like fixing, and my friend Benji Hag is the head of that, and but it's always cool to go see like what's going on, and then talk about you can talk a little shop about him, like what are you seeing mostly in like failures or whatever problems that he's seeing a lot. And the problem is though, like with the the Forest Service, the agency is so large and everyone's got the reasons for what they want, and it's so I think it's a little harder to get feedback to the contracts that turn out the engines. Like I think Boise Mobile's a big one, and I'm trying to think of the other companies that supply the engines to the Forest Service. But I mean, there's been a few things that have changed in my time frame. But I think we don't have it like you you know, be able to compile that information and then send it to your folks over there. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, like we've got our shop mechanics who know, the ins and outs of how, like they're the ones that did the welding on the truck, or they've got that ownership to it. And
Yeah.
but so like for our engines, we'll get a chassis from Ford and then a 550, and then we'll with nothing on it but the cab, and then we'll build up from there.
Dude, yeah, I like that, man. That's yeah, it's kind of the old school way. I'm staring at the Type 4 over here, and I'm like, looking at it like it looks similar. I mean, it looks like a flatbed with a bunch of stuff on it. Like that's kind of essentially what the slip is, right? It's just like a big flatbed that gets retrofitted for our needs, and that one actually looks pretty clean. But yeah, there's one I remember that one of the first crew cab engines I worked on. It was like kind of what you were referring to earlier, where you couldn't see the pipes, the plumbing, so it's just a bunch of big levers. And I'm like, and I was so used to chasing because it's so easier. It's way easier to chase, especially when you're drafting or something.
Oh, totally.
So I'm like, I don't know, like, so it's like pulling levers until I got to do what I wanted to do, but kill it every once in a while because it lose prime, and then then the pump shuts off. I'm like,
what do we do here?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like in an initial attack situation, I'm trying to get some water up the hill. I'm like, oh god, I look like an idiot down here in my second year, stressing over it. And it probably wasn't even that big of a deal, but it's always worse when you're the guy in the spotlight messing it up.
Totally.
Like a Mark. Do you guys work with Mark III pumps?
Oh yeah, we got plenty of them. Yeah,
that's another one that'll make you look bad in front of people. Like sometimes on purpose it feels like
you could be the best in the world, or you could know everything you're supposed to do, and it'll still give you a hard time.
Yeah,
sometimes.
It'll still fight you. You're like, God, I did everything, man. Like, they gave choked it, all the things, and then like it just, or like sometimes you get to sputter up real quick, like that first kind of pull, like and then they just can't get that sucker going.
Get false hope.
Yeah, exactly. Just tease you, make you look good for a second, and then just ruin your day. Oh, and then they're so loud.
Oh man, yeah.
The workhorse, jeez, man.
They put off a sound.
Yeah, they do. And when I first started too, like someone. You want to rotate people out, especially someone that didn't have a lot of experience with Mark III. So you want to throw them down there, and typically put someone else there that has experience in case something does happen.
Yeah.
And first I was like, oh man, that seems like a pretty cool job. Go down there, read a book, and just hang out and wait for someone to call you and send some water their way. And then I was doing it, and it was so loud,
numbingly loud.
Yeah, and that noise just will eat at you over like a 16-hour shift. So
well, and I mean, it's what's funny about it too is like there's a couple sounds that I feel like are synonymous with firefighting, and it's like a chainsaw, Mark III, and then like a Huey loaded with water headed up a valley. Like there's some of those sounds, like they just. Something about those sounds, they just carry.
They do, man, and they all are like, kind of sounds of I don't like joy a little bit. I guess is the word. I'm not looking for and that's not exact word, but like, happiness, I guess, because you got like a support coming, like especially you call like a Huey and you hear that thump 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 coming up the canyon, you're like, yeah, we're getting some water support.
Some water. Here we go. Yeah,
great.
Totally.
Or like chainsaws too, like as being an IC in a few different fires, when like I order up like a shot crew and you hear you can hear down the hill
getting after it.
Yeah, they fire up them saws. You're like, oh, dude, about to get some work in.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that sound, man. And then and actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to ask you about that earlier. I remember wanting to ride on a state helicopter so bad because I had heard that you guys had like Cobra engines or something in yours.
Yeah, so this is again a super awesome program so it's decommissioned federal property that the states get to take on for public safety purposes. So we've got 5 Huey airframes that we have, over the course of the last 25, 30 years, completely retrofitted. Like we're to the point where like really the only original parts on them are the airframe.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, we put Cobra Attack engine helicopter, Cobra Attack helicopter engines into them. We've got upgraded drive lines. We've got, this it's just a completely, it's not the Huey that it was when it was serving in the military. We've got all kinds of upgraded instruments and, upgraded performance parts. And so like the capabilities of the helicopter and the associated safety margins have increased because it's got more thrust, it's got more horsepower, it's operating at a cooler temperature. It's more responsive at those higher elevations or on the hot days. We put on a couple of them that especially work over on the east side of the state. We've got extended fuel tanks in them they can, work longer or get out to the where we need them faster, fly longer. And they're just, it's an incredible program that we've got all of our own mechanics. We do all the maintenance and overhaul that we can do in house, and then ship parts obviously out that we can't do that on. But yeah, those state Hueys are we're super proud of that program, and it's one of those things that's made possible through that strong partnership with the federal government, that we can get access to the parts and the aircraft to do that.
Yeah.
And then and then like the partnerships with Bell to say like, yep, these are these meet all the aeronautical specs, and we're good and in compliance with what we need to be. And
Oh, that's cool. That's great to hear too, because like you've got the people who are like looking over at the other team, like it's the same thing. Like we're all even wearing the same color Nomex, but like when they're looking at the different color truck, like, yeah, but I mean that's not really designed to hold that motor. And I was like, I don't care, man. I want to ride in one so bad. Like when I was first getting in, and then hearing all that, I mean, you guys are doing all the right things. You guys are covering all the safety concerns and everything else. So that's awesome, man. Have you ever got a chance to ride one?
Oh yeah, plenty. I got to spend a good summer chasing them around as a helicopter crew member, and we're super proud of the program, and I think one of the other things that's cool about it is that we've got 5 of them, so they're always in some maintenance cycle, but it's for us, and especially at the east side of the state, we typically respond to fires 12 months out of the year. And so we always keep at least 2 of the helicopters ready to respond to fire. And in here 3 weeks ago, late March, we had there's a couple fires bust outside of Bozeman and outside Helena, and we're flying all of them.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
so we do contract additional aviation resources, but to have kind of that base load that we know these guys are gonna be there, be ready 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Like it's a pretty awesome capacity for us.
Yeah, it's really awesome, man. Because that's one thing when I first got in the jumping world. I was at North Cascades Smoke Trooper Base, and their aircraft is a CASA, and it's a contract through Bighorn. And shout out to Bighorn, they're incredible. Love those guys. And but the it was only on so many months, right? And it was during the prime time of the season, so it came on kind of later than I expected, and left about normal time when fire season was winding down. And I mean, it showed up at normal time too when before fire season was ramping up. But they were talking about like jumping hunter fires and stuff. It's like, oh, that's cool, but it was more of a back in the day thing when we had our own aircraft there. I was like, oh dang, that'd be cool, because those, as those fall fires are like the best.
It's a fun, especially when the things have died down. And I loved especially it feels like it happened a lot in the Bitterroot, but where you get to wear your down jacket in the morning, and then you're sweating by the time you hike to the fire, and then when you're getting back to the truck, it's starting to cool off again. It's like that's the fun time of year.
Oh, it is, man. Yeah, you peel off the old yellow, throw the down jacket back on, and brew up another little cup of coffee and good talk shop, and not as much stress, because under maybe some extreme fall conditions, which is pretty rare, you don't have to worry about it going anywhere. You're like, yeah, man, we wouldn't put in some good work, and come back tomorrow, check it for heat, but the nighttime cold air, the old CNA crew, cold night air crew comes in and helps give you a little effort, and so the next day it's most of the time it's in really good shape the next day.
Oh, totally. The humidities are up. Yeah. But no, so when I kind of think back on some, like I haven't gotten to go to a fire in a while at this point in my career, unfortunately, but those are definitely the kinds that I miss.
Yeah, same, man. Like the coffee tastes a little better when you're on fire, man. It's so good. Probably just a little smell in the air.
Totally.
Kind of the same thing, man. Like I haven't really been too active in fire lately, and I'm looking to do a little more fire support here in the future. But it's tough, man. You get a little older and you kind of age out of it a little bit, and it does beat you up a little bit. So I'm not sad that I'm not a primary fire guy anymore, because I wasn't bouncing too well at the end of my jump career, so I had a few hard landings. But then, and that brings me to another question I had for you, because I had a misconception with like hazard pay. Do you guys get hazard pay, or how does it work for the DNRC?
Yeah, so we call it differential pay, and it's don't beat yourself up about it too bad. It's relatively new for us. So,
gotcha.
but so we have, it's a 10% bump in your base rate is what we do for our differential pay, and it's while you're supporting authorized emergency work. So so one of the things that we were trying to do with it is like, well, we didn't want to make like there's pros and cons to saying like, yeah, uncontrolled fire line or not. And so how we tried to do it is say like, hey, if you're supporting authorized emergency work, we're gonna just say, yeah, this is we found that to be easier to track and audit
Yeah.
for how our systems work. And so we do a 10% bump. We call it differential pay. And
That's a good deal, though.
yeah, so we're stoked to be able to have that. And and I think it's kind of like part of this broader evolution I've seen for our fire program at the department of over the years, like since I've started, just the new opportunities that we've had access to, and a lot of it's come from support of our elected officials and opportunity, and the change in expectation of what the program's delivering, and how we're responding to fires across the state. Because I mentioned that piece about how much land we protect across the state. And I think it's as important to note too, like the vast majority of that is private property.
Oh yeah.
And
man.
so our fire policy is set by the state legislature. And so when safe and effective to do so, aggressive initial attack is our primary response strategy. And and a lot of that is because it's private property that we're protecting.
Yeah, man.
And so that's kind of how our fire program is really designed around how do we be safe and effective at initial attack.
Yeah, no, that's really good too, because that's it seems like the kind of universal theme, I think, right, in the fire community is that, right, like safe and effective.
Mm-hmm.
And because sometimes like it could be totally safe, but it's not effective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we've all been on those fires where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even seen the fire, been on it for like a couple days now, like because you're doing indirect attack and you're like, oh, is there a fire?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, so we like to get on them when they're small, and and get after it when
keep
we
it that
can.
way, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, totally. Especially those those Hueys, those souped up Hueys. That's got to be awesome, man.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. That's another place you can go check out sometime if you want to. Our hangar, we do all the maintenance. So we do all the maintenance in kind of like winter storage. They hibernate over in Helena.
Oh yeah.
And then we got a hangar here, like just over by our EDC shop there. We got one there. We got one in Missoula, and then we rent a facility in Billings and Miles City to spread them out over the summer, and then
Oh, cool.
and then float one wherever it needs to be based on activity.
Dude, that's cool, man. Yeah, I like
Mm-hmm.
that, and got a pretty good scope of the state, and especially with the speed those things can probably cruise at, man. And you can get to a fire pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
Does it? Have you been in a different helicopter besides that one? Like, I'm just kind of wondering, like, does it feel different?
It feels. I mean, I've been in quite a few. Like especially when I was a crew member and I was working on my manager task book, and I never got that one done. But so I've been in quite a few different ones, and there's just something about the Huey airframe that I don't know if it's like the nostalgia, or it's such an iconic airframe that they're fun. Flying doors open in a Huey is a pretty cool.
You guys get to fly with the doors open?
We used to fly with them open. Now, I guess when it's doing fire operations, the doors are open. But when we're in transit now, they close the doors on.
Yeah, I've only been a door closed kind of guy in a helicopter, unfortunately. I never got to experience that, but I always imagined it had to be incredible. And for folks who don't know, when a helicopter takes off, it's so much different than a plane, because a plane, you got that gradual thing, and then you kind of feel the lift. But with the helicopters, man, when it takes off, you get like a little bit of that 0G for a hot second. It's a crazy feeling.
Yeah, and then they tip the nose and off you go.
Yeah,
like,
man, but that's a weird feeling at first. Like, I mean, just like instantly, as soon as those was it struts, right?
Is
it struts? No, what are they called? The skids.
Skids, yeah.
Skids. I almost call them skis. As soon as those skids lift, I mean, just barely off the ground, you feel that little bit of like, no gravity kind of situation. And then all of a sudden, like you said, nose down, and then it feels similar ish. I mean, you still got a little bit of different motion going through the sky, but it's similar ish to a.
Yeah, and it's a weird feeling too when you're like, sizing up a fire from the air, and so you're not really moving. They're just kind of hovering or just slowly crabbing to the side. It's a different feeling for sure.
It is, man, and I kind of forgot because we get flown off, I guess, a few as jumpers, like with a helicopter, but like you said, not sizing one up like with a jump plane, you're sizing one up and you kind of tip to the side and you're cruising around, and so I was kind of used to that like speed, and like you said, when you're in a helicopter, like, wow, this is nice. Slow down, take a little more look at this thing, get a little closer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I forgot about it until I was after I left jumping. I was like, whoa, all right, yeah, it's kind of nice to be in a helicopter again.
No, they're a fun ride.
Yeah, sure. And they look cool. They stand out. I mean, you really know it, and because that first time I experienced it, and I don't think I knew at this point that there was more beefier engine in it, but I think they had a pretty good sized bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what kind of bucket you guys, like how many gallons?
Yeah, they're Bambi buckets, and I think they're, we can neck it down. And I think but I think our sweet spot's about 340 gallons.
340 gallons? That's pretty
hmm
good, yeah.
And then it's still, with like all those additional performance upgrades too, like the, electric oil coolers, or all these just different things that to try to, that increase that margin of what it's capable of doing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I was just thinking, I think it was on like a short line,
Yeah, the belly hook on
the
them.
belly hook on it, yeah. And because I was at the dip site, and I think I was just kind of helping manage it or something. I don't know. I was pretty new, and so I didn't, I wasn't really aware of what was going on. But that thing filled up and just like took off and was on the antelope. I think it was the antelope fire just north of Whitehall. I was like, whoa! I was like, that was quick, because like it just like came down, super low because of the belly hook, and then ripped out of there. Like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So the turnaround was super quick with those things.
No, they're fun to watch, and we got a great core of pilots that help keep them up there and running, and it's a fantastic program.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And yeah, I'd love to like tour the facility with you one of these days, man.
Totally.
And, I just got a set of like those little fuzzy lapel mics. It'd be kind of cool to kind of
show you
off.
around.
Yeah, show off the stuff you guys got if that's cool with you.
Yeah. But so one of your other questions though is you were asking like kind of what the other state programs like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because before, I guess I didn't preface it exactly the way I wanted to. So sorry to cut you off. But I was thinking
worries.
is it like the DNR in Wisconsin? Is that kind of?
Yeah. So so all states have some semblance of a program, or of like whether it's their DNR or like Idaho's got IDL, the Idaho Department of Lands,
Yes,
or
yes.
like Washington DNR, we're the DNRC. So everyone's kind of got their own. State lands department, and all have different responsibilities, and different, ways they implement their programs. And so there's kind of a unique take depending on which state you're in, what their responsibilities are. But we have our own, state groups that coordinate and talk about state issues and what management's like for us. And
Oh, nice.
always have federal representatives in those conversations too. And then I think the other part too is like we're like all of our folks that we train and engines and stuff, it's all in the basis that no agency can do it all on its own. So anything we can to support the system, and we train and equip to that, national standard so that everybody is interoperable.
Yeah,
with
that's
each
huge,
other.
man.
And that was, for me, that was like back when I was fighting fire, one of the most fun things is getting to go down Arizona, New Mexico, or like some of those other areas to see what fire's like down there, and then come back, bring those stories that, you learned while you're out and about, and another fuel type. And
yeah, totally, man. Yeah, it's so good to experience a different fuel type, man. And like when I first started, and I don't know if it's still like this, so you'll have to let me know, but the guard school for the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest was at a place called Birch Creek. I was almost blanking on it. At Birch Creek, just north of Dillon on I-15. And it's a cool facility, and there's cabins and stuff, and like it's kind of a bunkhouse. But the state sent a few folks there too, so it was kind of cool because there was like some Anaconda Job Corps kids there, or students that were same age as me. There was a Forest Service and there was DNRC, so it was kind of cool. You get to like know these folks before you went out and started your fire career, and then I got to run into a few of those folks like down the road on different fires, and I think it really helped like just maybe dispel anything that maybe come up if I didn't start with a bunch of different folks from different agencies or backgrounds, so like I knew that like those DNRC folks got the same training I got, so it's like when we got on the fire line, I was like, we all know about the same thing here, so
Totally.
I thought that was kind of nice. Is there still any of that going on, I guess?
Oh, totally. Like that's what the first hand crew I got to be on was that throw together Kootenai crew, where each district, threw in a certain number of people, and then the state always got 1 or 2 slots on the crew.
Oh, nice.
And so I think like that type of interagency mixing was, just like it's how you make friends with it when you call for help, and you're like, oh, cool, like I know these guys. You've got that trust built in, and
yeah,
so I think that type of exposure and engagement, I think is interoperability of everything we're doing, I think is just super important.
Yeah, totally. And then I just had CJ on. We talked more right before, and CJ, and one of his classes, and I think it might have been like Wildland Urban Interface, and a few of the folks from your office came to help teach a different aspect of it. And then I think on the Show Me Tour Day, it was led by the DNRC because, like you said, most of the private land stuff, and that was super cool. And that was pretty early on in my career, and so like I didn't didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, this is cool. I kind of thought that was like the standard, you know, that like people from everywhere come to help teach a class. And then down the road, I can't remember the fellow's name, so forgive me for listening. But he ended up being task force on one of my first assignments when I was engine boss, and I was like, oh, dude, and like he remembered who I was because it was a small class. I was like, oh man, good to see you. But like we already built up that relationship, so I didn't have to like, you know, like get to know, like we're familiar, I guess. So like I think it helped out with like the communication between me and him on what he was wanting us out of my engine crew to do. So that was super super important and super helpful, you know.
And I mean, I think that's one of the super cool things about the fire community too, is that the small world of it is that it's like, oh yeah, that person that was teaching that class, like someday, you know, you're gonna have that qualification. You might show up and you know you're working together, and it's like it's a smaller world than I think you realize sometimes.
Yeah, totally, man. And I've noticed it too, nationally a little bit too, being able to go out and do Region 8 assignments and a few things where like are pumping to somebody that's from somewhere out this way. That I hadn't worked with before, and then all of a sudden, like you see him again on like a big, you know, big fire somewhere. And you're like, oh wow, you know, big complex or something. You're like, hey man, you know, it's been a while, and then you catch up a little bit. But it's the, I think it's the fastest way to build like a tight knit relationship is because I think there's no that feeling each other out really like when you're in fire long enough. Like it's like, oh yeah, we both fight fire. What's up? You know, like what do you need? How can I help you? Like it. There's not the feeling each other out. There's not like the even like the communication thing, like awkwardness, like you might have in like out in something else, like in the you know regular world. If you're out like in college and you're like coming together on a project with like somebody, you're like, hey, how's it going? I'm Luke. You know, I like being outdoors. You know, like and you get that little awkward thing. But like with fire, it's like you said, man, like me and you could go on a fire tomorrow, and it's like we had this conversation, so it's like. You know, I could come work for you, and you'd be like, "Hey, man, I need you this." Got it, man.
Yeah, we got the same terminology. We got, you know, we know
same language.
Totally. But so I think that's just one of the cool things is like so kind of that same theory though. Like each state, yeah, they implement their program a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, we're state, federal agency. We've all got similar goals in mind.
Yeah, totally, and that's what I kind of figured going in. But I, like you said, the IDL, and I couldn't think of it in the beginning, so I'm glad you said that. And then I was thinking about the DNR, and it's like, you know, they're all similar, right? But the thing is, too, is like it doesn't matter if it's like DNR, IDL, DNRC, Forest Service, BLM. We all have the same goals, you know. Like I don't think there's really. I mean, the mission statement might be written a little different, but it's essentially, you know, in its essence, is like the same exact goal. It's like how to make a healthy forest, how to keep our watersheds healthy, and our fish alive, and all the things.
Yeah,
right?
to protect people, protect firefighters. Like you know, we have a lot in common, and so it's a super fun spot to to sit in. I think is how do we make I don't know, how do we make sure that we're representing the interests that we need to, which sometimes they're different, and then but still all, at the end of the day, trying to make sure we know we can still work together.
Yeah, totally. And like we talked about a little bit about before we started about like the different folks who've come up a little different. Like I got a chance to work with the Valley County Fair with a person who had just come from the Forest Service to the DNRC, and I was like, is there any growing pains or anything? And she was like, no, not really. Like it was, it's pretty seamless. It was kind of. I think she'd been in the Forest Service for a while, so she was like, it was kind of like back when I started on a smaller district. Like things were, like. A little bit more of the tight knit kind of nature of like the Montana DNRC versus like the giant green machine of the Forest Service, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I imagine still some of the same speed bumps you get when you're trying to get a project done of just like trying to get a hold of each other and all the communication things that come down, and but in the end, probably less being the Montana DNRC, just a little bit smaller than like the Forest Service, well, quite a bit smaller than the Forest Service, but like in the small thing though, it's like. A lot of times, just like forest, there's only so many contacts, I guess, to get something done, which is probably very similar to the NRC,
Well, and I think it's like it's a good, like maybe the example I talk about is the Good Neighbor Authority, where we get to partner with the Forest Service and DOI agencies to try to help find efficiencies to get some authorized forest restoration projects done, and. There's different strengths that exist in each agency, and so it's it's like an opportunity to figure out how can we work together to use the strengths that we have to get that work done on the ground. And sometimes that might mean like, let's bring in outside parties to help get this part done, and then we'll do this part, and you guys have that expertise, you do that part. And it's in a way it's almost like its own little fire world where people have all their different specialties, and it's like, hey, how do we have the same goal, we want to reduce the wildfire risk here and improve the forest health. You do that part, we'll do this part, and then let's get after it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, it's awesome, man. And we kind of do this. Well, we do the same thing on our side, on the forester side of things too. And like I just was sitting in a conversation with, I can't remember, silviculture folks or timber, but they were talking about how they're even able to get a little more hands off with like contracting to loggers who the logging company comes in and is going to thin an area for us, and like we used to paint trees and use a lot of flagging and stuff, and it sounds like they're no longer painting trees, not even really using flagging so much, and just using a lot of technology. It's like, here's the boundary, here's our parameters, and which is kind of cool too, because it's no more hand holding. Is kind of what I got out of it, because before it seemed like it's a lot of hands on from us, agency folks with the logger, and in my experience, the logger can identify way more trees than I can, at just like a glance, so they really know what they're doing. And there's always, you always got to check and see how the work's going, and if they need any help or, anything else, or making sure they're staying within prescription. But, for the most part, if you got a good relationship with those folks, you can just stay out of their hair and just let them work and clean up the forest and make it a nice place,
Oh, totally. And I think that's, the technology application that we're seeing, and, whether it's updates to some of the what regulations or operating policies that we're working under to try to I think acknowledge, like, in some senses the workforce is changing, and what people are good at is different than what it used to be. And so how do we adapt to make sure we can still get that stuff done that we need to, or recognize that things are changing, like we don't have the same number of sawmills that we did 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's
and
big. That's a big one.
and so and so that might mean we need to look at some of the problems differently. It doesn't mean that it's going to be better or worse, but it's like we got to take advantage of the opportunity to try new things and implement, where possible, implement new technology to make sure that we're not that we stay relevant. I think is a lot of it, and that's one of the things that I think's been interesting, is just anytime you go to the conferences, whether it's a forestry conference or a fire conference, the technology that people are coming up with and working on implementing is just incredible.
Oh yeah, man.
Think about where, like when I just, for me, like I had a flip phone when I started, but, fighting fire, and now we got, iPads in every truck, and, the cat, like you look at the cabs of some of these modern logging equipment, and it's like, it is not the same thing that it used to be. And so it's cool to see, and the efficiencies that they're finding, and in a lot of ways it's delivering better results on the ground too, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's really great to hear too, because I think for the most part all of us are on the same page in that sense, where it's like we can all identify the problems, but let's not get hung up on that, right? Let's what's the solution, like you said with the sawmills, like what. So I mean, we're all in that same, everybody who's in the land management agencies probably in the U.S. getting tongue-tied this evening. They're, probably facing the same problems, whether it's in Montana or anywhere else, with a lot of sawmills closing down, and trying to figure out like what's the solution there. So like you said, with those relationships with the IDL and everybody else, it's, you can just talk shop and someone's going to come up with a good solution. And then it's being able to spread the word on that, with how fast with the technology and how fast we can communicate, just jump on a Teams call, like, hey, this is what we're going to try this summer. And oh, awesome, man. Like whether it's like a log deck and trying to like figure out some kind of other, milling system, or, whatever we're going to do to get that timber out to, or get that product out to the public in, whatever sense that might be, in like 2x4s or pulp or whatever, the wood's going to end up being.
Yeah. Like a lot of resourceful folks in the system trying to figure it out. And I think, there's a lot of really cool things happening to try to, meet some of the needs of, like, whether it's a sustained yield unit that they're working on over on the east side of the state, like these, new ideas to try to help address issues. And there's as government agencies, there's certain parts of it that we can help with, and some things like what the market's doing are just outside of our control. But, where we can help, where, we're committed to trying to do our part to, because we need that infrastructure to make sure that we can do these cost-effective fuels treatments to protect the community's infrastructure to the best of our ability.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's a great point to make there too. And it kind of led me to another point I want to throw out there too, is that like our agencies, that we work for, also like you said with the fire what do you call it, like a fire resilient environment, that we're all trying to build and protecting infrastructure and all these other things. And also we talked about a little bit earlier with fish, but like protecting species too, right? Like, the sage grouse is the big one, that I think of. And, like if something like the DNRC or the Forest Service, all these things didn't exist, there might be a little bit more, harsher impacts on species that are a little bit more sensitive. So it's kind of cool. And they're indicator species too. Like if they're having a hard time, it's like, what's going on? Like, and how can we improve it? And the way we like thin or, treat the landscape, we can adjust, and I just think sometimes in the private sector, you don't have that much time to like take a step back and be like, all right, what's the big picture of this? Like, how's everything doing? Like, are we seeing any impacts with like bull trout or whatever it might be,
And yeah, and I mean, I think what I'd say too, like that we have, it's that it's all just this one big system that's reliant on each other. And it's like, well, if we can't address the forest health issues, the wildfire issues are going to continue to get worse. And then a lot of people will talk about like, well, we need to do more prescribed fire. And it's like, I agree. Prescribed fire is great, but you can't walk into some of these stands and just introduce fire after, after it hasn't had any management in a significant amount of time. So there's pre-work that you got to do, to get some of those conditions corrected. And it's a pace and scale issue too. And that like, there's a lot, and that was one of the, big eye-opening things for me when we were doing the forest action plan, is just like seeing the raw data of like the insect and disease flights where they're identifying different bug kills. And like, there's a whole lot, it's like, there's a whole lot more pests out there than just bark beetle that are killing trees. And so it's how are we being nimble in addressing those, or preventing further outbreaks, or when we have these, big blowdown events, how do we make sure like that we did this winter, like how do we make sure that we can, turn some good out of those types of events and make use of the raw material.
Yeah, definitely, man. We were doing quite a bit of that on the Bitterroot this summer, just trying to figure out like, like not letting it just like go to waste or burn up. Like, is there any kind of, loggers that would like some of this, because some of it's pretty good board feed there. You can get some of these trees that came down, and or even like using it for some of the habitat, stuff that we're trying to do with like some of the trout and stuff, which is super cool. And there's something else I was going to tie into that, because, to go back on what I said earlier, not to like shit on a, private industry. It's just, we're set up for more of the big picture kind of environmental approach to things. So, I think that's a responsibility that we took on when these agencies became, back in Teddy Roosevelt was like projecting this is what we're going to all become, as land management agencies. And so it's part of our mission is to make sure that everything stays in balance,
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the modern forestry, like, so I was last week I got to go give some closing remarks to the state Society of American Foresters.
Oh man!
And and it was interesting because you got like the old dogs that are getting their 50-year pins for being members for 50 years, and then you got the college kids that are getting ready to graduate. And it's I think the amount of change and knowledge that's been gained over the course of those careers to help us make better forest management decisions for the future about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how we can, manage given the constraints that we do or we don't have, and what's the best to set us up for success in the long run. I think it's, so it was a super fun, energetic group to be around. And I told them too, when I was doing the closing remarks, I was like, I'm a little bit jealous, like the world that they're walking into with the knowledge that, they're equipped with, and it'll be cool to see the solutions that they can come up with to the problems we're facing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And arms a little bit more education on some things, and like you said, technology, and like they grew up with more technology than we did. Like you said, flip phones, and before that, I remember caller ID being a big thing when I was a kid. It's like you actually see who's calling, And then before that, the answer machine, and my nana was big about screening the phone call. Man, she would not answer. Like you'd have to like talk to the voicemail or the not voicemail, what is it?
The
like
answering machine.
Yeah, you'd have to talk to the answer machine for a hot second, and then she'd pick up.
Like, hey, you there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was listening in, man, which is kind of funny to talk about because this new generation has never experienced something like that. And but yeah, that too, and I remember this is what I was thinking of earlier too. That I was gonna say too is on a recent burn I was on, they're using a drone, you know,
Yeah.
to light, and I was like, whoa, that's cool, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when that was like an idea, and then it just sometimes, you know, with technology, it takes a minute. Like the idea gets floated out there, they test it, and it sounds like a good thing, and all of a sudden, I just like, you're like, is that coming or is it not coming?
Mm-hmm.
And so like so for me, a lot of times until I see it, I kind of forget about it. You know, I'm like, that sounds like a cool idea, and then
Yeah.
I kind of forget about it because I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna come, and then all of a sudden, bam, there it is. I'm like, this is super cool.
I know, and they're like, I had my doubts about it when I first heard about them doing that,
Same.
and then I saw them, and then I kind of thought back on my career, and it's like, well, yeah, like that would have been a great place to slip and fall and get hurt on some places where, you know, you can send the drone and it does exactly what you want it to do, and so I think those are some of those like force multipliers or enhancements to the workforce that I think will help us get more work done the way we want it. More positive outcomes is my goal, is how we use that technology.
Yeah, absolutely, Wyatt. I'm right there with you, man. Well, I think that's probably good stuff to end her. But
Mm-hmm.
unless you got anything else you want to add.
No, I super appreciate the opportunity to come chat, and we're you know, I don't know, I really appreciate being here. Getting to talk with you about what we do at the DNRC, and
Well, yeah, thank you, man. Like, I appreciate you taking the time because, like I said, I was a little, just never worked for the DNRC, so I wasn't real clear on a lot of stuff, and I definitely don't put the wrong information out there. So, like, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is to get folks out there a little more information. Like, I think I'm dragging this out a little longer, but
You're good.
but I'll say this last thing is that, like, when I first was coming up, because there wasn't a state office in my town, it was the Forest Service, right? So like most kids I went to high school with, especially being a small high school, is like, if you want to work in the outdoors, you're like, I need to go, knock on the Forest Service door and bug them. So like with this platform, I'm hoping that I can reach more folks and be like, you don't have to just go in the Forest Service. Like, if it were me, if I go back to my shoes as a senior in high school, I'd be like, I'd be bugging you. I'd be bugging the BLM. I'd be bugging the Forest Service. I'd be bugging all the outdoor agencies, and just wherever I landed is probably where I would have set my career. Because, like you, man, you started in the DNRC and you're still in the DNRC because just doors open up, and maybe I would have went into something else, but like there's a good chance I could have ended up in the DNRC if there was a DNRC office in Whitehall. But that was back before the internet was very good, and there was dumb phones, so you couldn't look anything up, and the Forest Service office was just like a stone throw away from the high school, so it's easy to like walk over there and just be like, hi, I'm Luke, I don't really know anything, but I'd like to be here. I want to wear green pants.
Like that. This looks like a cool job. No, we talked a lot about forestry and fire, but the DNRC, we do a lot of other things in the state. Range management. We do a lot of agriculture.
Yeah.
Minerals. Great. Like there's a whole bunch of different things that
giant nursery here in town.
Yeah, we grow 1 million seedlings a year at our nursery for conservation purposes. We got a bunch of different stuff going on, and that's one thing that I want to say too, like just that diversity of it. So the trust lands part of the DNRC. So those were lands that were, when Montana became a state, that we got to manage to help offset the cost of public education. And so we at the DNRC, through the management of about 5.5 million acres of land, we generate revenue to help offset the cost of public education in the state. And so, that's just another super cool, easy thing to get really excited about to come to work to do every day.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. And, yeah, so folks who are looking to get out there, I mean, you don't have to be a high school kid. You've got to be anybody who wants to help out with the outdoors. I mean, the DNRC is a great place to start, huh?
Yeah, I don't have any regrets about how I've landed here.
Oh, awesome, man. Well, thanks again, dude. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, man, anytime. Thanks for tuning in. We'll probably do another one, man.
I'd love to, yeah.
Oh, thanks, dude.